Welcome to IELTS Self-Peep MasterPrep, your trusted source for real exam-based practice tests. Every test you see here is inspired by current exam trends, and each one comes with full model solutions to help you master every section. Here's our daily schedule. IELTS tests drop every morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern, and CLP tests every evening at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. No matter which exam you're preparing for, we've got you covered every single day. Are you ready for today's test? Give it your best shot and comment your score. The top 5 scorers will be featured in our monthly Achievers newsletter and awards. Want your name included? Let's begin.
How many hours of sleep do you usually get each night?
I usually sleep about 7 hours every night. I go to bed around 11 and wake up at 6 in the morning. Sometimes on weekends I sleep more, maybe 8 or 9 hours. I think 7 hours is enough for me to feel okay during the day.
On a typical weeknight, I tend to get around 7 hours of sleep, which I find is sufficient for me to function well the following day. I usually turn in at about 10:30 and my alarm goes off at 5:45. However, at weekends I allow myself a bit of a lie-in, often sleeping until 8 or so, which helps me recharge.
It varies somewhat depending on my workload, but I'd say I average around 7 hours on weeknights. I'm quite disciplined about maintaining a consistent bedtime routine. I typically wind down by 10:30 and drift off fairly quickly. That said, I must confess that at weekends I'm rather guilty of oversleeping, sometimes not surfacing until 9 o'clock, which I suppose is my body's way of compensating for the demands of the working week.
Has your daily routine changed much in recent years?
Yes, my routine has changed a lot. Before, I used to wake up late and stay up very late at night. But now I have a job, so I need to wake up early every day. I also exercise in the morning now, which I didn't do before. I think my routine is healthier now.
Absolutely, it's changed quite significantly over the past couple of years. I used to be something of a night owl during my university days, rarely going to bed before 1 in the morning. Since starting my current job, though, I've had to shift my entire schedule forward. I now wake at 5:30 to fit in a morning jog before work, which has actually done wonders for my energy levels throughout the day.
Oh, dramatically so. If you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would have described myself as a thoroughly nocturnal creature, studying until the early hours, sleeping through half the morning. But transitioning into full-time employment essentially forced me to overhaul my entire schedule. These days, I'm up at the crack of dawn, and I've incorporated habits like meditation and a brisk walk that I never would have contemplated previously. It's remarkable how much more productive and mentally sharp I feel as a result of these adjustments.
Do you think it's important to have a fixed daily routine?
Yes, I think having a routine is important because it helps you manage your time better. If you have a routine, you know what to do every day and you don't waste time. But I also think it's good to be flexible sometimes, like on holidays or weekends when you can relax more.
I'd say it's fairly important, particularly for people who have demanding jobs or studies. A structured routine provides a sense of stability and helps you prioritize tasks effectively. Having said that, I don't think one should be overly rigid about it. There needs to be room for spontaneity. Otherwise life can become rather monotonous and you risk burning out from the repetitiveness of it all.
I'm firmly of the belief that a well-established routine is invaluable, particularly when it comes to maintaining both physical and mental well-being. It provides a framework that eliminates decision fatigue and ensures you allocate time to what truly matters. Nevertheless, I'd argue there's a fine line between healthy structure and excessive rigidity. The most effective routines, in my experience, are those that incorporate built-in flexibility, allowing you to adapt to unforeseen circumstances without feeling as though your entire day has unraveled.
Do you prefer watching films at home or at the cinema?
I prefer watching films at home because it's more comfortable and convenient. I can pause the film if I need to do something, and I don't have to spend money on tickets. But sometimes I go to the cinema with friends because it's more fun to watch together on a big screen.
On the whole, I'd say I gravitate towards watching films at home, mainly for the convenience factor. You can watch whenever suits you and pause if needed. The comfort of your own sofa is hard to beat. That being said, there are certain films, particularly action blockbusters with spectacular visual effects, that genuinely benefit from the cinema experience with its enormous screen and surround sound system.
It really depends on the type of film in question. For visually stunning blockbusters or highly anticipated releases, I find there's nothing quite like the immersive experience of the cinema. The sheer scale of the screen coupled with the atmospheric sound design creates something you simply cannot replicate at home. However, for more intimate character-driven pieces or foreign language films with subtitles, I infinitely prefer the comfort of my living room, where I can fully absorb the dialogue without distractions from fellow audience members rustling popcorn or checking their phones.
What kind of television programs did you enjoy watching as a child?
When I was a child, I enjoyed watching cartoons a lot, especially ones about animals and adventures. I also liked programs about science because they showed interesting experiments. I used to watch television every day after school with my brother, and we always argued about what to watch.
As a child, I was absolutely hooked on animated series, particularly adventure cartoons with ongoing storylines that kept you coming back week after week. I also had a soft spot for nature documentaries. I found them utterly fascinating, and they probably sparked my early interest in biology. My parents were fairly strict about screen time, though, so I was limited to about an hour after finishing my homework.
I was an avid consumer of television as a youngster, I must admit. I was particularly drawn to animated adventure series, the kind with elaborate mythological storylines and compelling characters that you'd become genuinely invested in over multiple seasons. Beyond that, I had an insatiable appetite for wildlife documentaries narrated by David Attenborough, which instilled in me a deep appreciation for the natural world that persists to this day. Looking back, I think those programs were instrumental in shaping my curiosity and imagination far more than I realized at the time.
Do you think people watch too much television nowadays?
Yes, I think many people watch too much television these days. They spend hours watching series on streaming services and don't do other activities like exercising or reading. However, I think some programs are educational and useful, so watching television is not always bad if you control the time.
I'd say there's certainly a tendency for people to overconsume television content nowadays, particularly with streaming platforms making it so effortless to binge-watch entire series in one sitting. It can become quite addictive and eat into time that might be better spent on physical activity or social interaction. That said, I wouldn't condemn all viewing. There's some genuinely enriching content available if you're selective about what you watch.
I think it's undeniable that screen consumption has escalated enormously, largely owing to the proliferation of streaming services that offer virtually unlimited content at one's fingertips. The ease with which people can passively consume episode after episode is somewhat concerning, particularly when it displaces more enriching pursuits such as physical exercise, face-to-face socialization, or creative hobbies. However, I'd hesitate to make sweeping generalizations. The quality and diversity of programming available today is arguably superior to what existed previously, and when consumed mindfully, television can be a genuinely thought-provoking and culturally enriching medium.
Please begin speaking now.
I want to talk about when I passed my driving test on the first attempt. This happened about 2 years ago in my hometown. I was very nervous because many of my friends had failed their tests before. I prepared for this by taking lessons twice a week for about 3 months. My instructor was very patient and taught me many things about road safety. On the day of the test, I tried to stay calm and remember everything I had learned. The examiner asked me to do different maneuvers like parallel parking and reversing around a corner. I made a few minor mistakes but nothing serious. When he told me I had passed, I felt so happy and relieved. I am proud of this because it showed me that hard work and practice can help you succeed. Also, having a driving license has given me more independence in my daily life.
I'd like to describe an achievement that I'm particularly proud of, which was completing a half marathon last spring. I'd never been especially athletic, so when I signed up for the event in my city's annual sports festival, most people around me were rather skeptical about whether I could manage it. To prepare, I followed a structured training program over 16 weeks, gradually building up my stamina and distance. I started with short 3-kilometer jogs and eventually worked my way up to running 18 kilometers without stopping. The race itself was incredibly challenging, especially around the 15-kilometer mark when my legs felt like lead. However, I kept pushing through by focusing on my breathing and reminding myself of all those early morning training sessions. Crossing the finish line in just under 2 hours was an overwhelmingly emotional moment. I'm proud of this achievement because it fundamentally changed my perception of my own capabilities. It taught me that consistency and determination can overcome natural limitations, and it's given me confidence to tackle other daunting challenges since then.
I'd like to talk about something that remains one of my proudest moments, organizing and leading a community fundraising campaign that raised over £15,000 for a local children's hospice. This took place approximately 18 months ago in my neighborhood, and it spanned roughly 3 months from conception to completion. What made this particularly challenging was that I had virtually no prior experience in event management or charitable work. I assembled a small team of volunteers, and together we orchestrated a series of events including a charity auction, a sponsored walk, and a gala dinner. I took on the responsibility of coordinating logistics, approaching local businesses for sponsorship, and managing our social media presence to maximize engagement. The most demanding aspect was undoubtedly persuading corporate sponsors to contribute, which required me to develop my negotiation and public speaking skills considerably. When we finally presented the check to the hospice, the gratitude from the staff and families was profoundly moving. I'm immensely proud of this achievement not merely because of the sum raised, but because it demonstrated that ordinary individuals can effect meaningful change within their communities. It reinforced my belief that leadership isn't about possessing innate talent but rather about channeling passion into purposeful action.
Do you think you might attempt something similar in the future?
Yes, I think I would like to try something similar again. It was a good experience and I learned a lot from it. Maybe next time I would choose something even more difficult to challenge myself. I believe that when you achieve something once, it gives you confidence to try harder things.
Absolutely. I'd very much like to build on that experience. Having gone through the process once, I feel far better equipped to take on a comparable challenge, perhaps even something more ambitious. I think achievements tend to breed further ambition, and I've already been contemplating what my next goal might be. It's given me a taste for pushing my boundaries.
Without a doubt, I fully intend to pursue similarly ambitious goals. In fact, having tasted that sense of accomplishment, I find myself perpetually seeking new challenges that stretch my capabilities. I'm a firm believer that achievements serve as stepping stones rather than endpoints, and each success recalibrates your understanding of what's attainable. I've already begun researching my next venture, which I anticipate will be considerably more demanding, but that prospect excites rather than intimidates me now.
Why do you think some people are more motivated to achieve goals than others?
I think some people are more motivated because of their family background. If parents encourage children from a young age, they learn to work hard and set goals. Also, some people have more competitive personalities naturally. Another reason is that people who have experienced difficulties in life often want to improve their situation, so they work harder to achieve things.
I believe motivation levels vary significantly depending on several factors. Firstly, upbringing plays a crucial role. Individuals raised in environments where effort is praised tend to develop a stronger drive to succeed. Additionally, personality traits such as resilience and self-discipline are partly innate and partly cultivated through experience. There's also the influence of role models. People who witness others overcoming adversity are often inspired to pursue their own ambitions more vigorously. Ultimately, I think it's a complex interplay of nature and nurture.
This is a multifaceted issue, and I'd argue that motivation stems from a complex convergence of psychological, social, and environmental factors. From a psychological standpoint, individuals with what researchers term a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed through dedication, tend to exhibit far greater persistence in pursuing goals. Socioeconomically, those who've witnessed tangible rewards from hard work in their immediate environment are naturally more inclined to invest effort in their own aspirations. Furthermore, cultural values play an understated role. Societies that celebrate individual achievement tend to produce more goal-oriented individuals. However, I caution against oversimplification. Motivation fluctuates throughout one's lifetime and is profoundly shaped by circumstances beyond personal control.
Do you believe that society places too much emphasis on personal achievements?
Yes, I think sometimes society focuses too much on achievements. People always compare themselves with others, especially on social media. This can make people feel stressed or unhappy if they haven't achieved as much. However, achievements are also important because they help people feel good about themselves and contribute to society. So I think we need a balance.
To a certain extent, I do believe there's an excessive focus on measurable achievements in modern society. We're constantly bombarded with success stories on social media, which can create unrealistic expectations and foster unhealthy comparisons. This achievement-oriented culture particularly affects young people, who may feel inadequate if they haven't ticked certain boxes by a particular age. That said, I wouldn't dismiss the value of recognizing accomplishments entirely. It provides purpose and drives innovation. The issue lies in how narrowly we define achievement, often equating it solely with career success or financial gain rather than personal growth or community contribution.
This is something I feel quite strongly about. I contend that contemporary society has developed an almost pathological obsession with quantifiable achievement, largely perpetuated by social media's curated narratives of success. This relentless emphasis creates what psychologists might call a deficit mindset, where individuals perpetually measure their worth against external benchmarks rather than deriving satisfaction from intrinsic growth. The consequences are far-reaching. Rising rates of anxiety and burnout, particularly among younger generations, can be partly attributed to this cultural pressure. Nevertheless, I acknowledge that celebrating achievement serves important social functions. It incentivizes innovation and provides aspirational frameworks. The crux of the matter, I believe, is redefining what constitutes a meaningful achievement, broadening our collective understanding to encompass emotional intelligence, community engagement, and personal contentment alongside traditional markers of success.
How might the way people measure success change in the coming decades?
I think in the future, people might care more about happiness and health than money and careers. Young people today already seem to value work-life balance more than their parents did. Also, with climate change problems, people might measure success by how much they help the environment. Technology might also change things because new jobs will appear that we cannot imagine now.
I anticipate that our metrics for success will undergo a significant transformation over the coming decades. There's already a noticeable shift among younger generations towards prioritizing well-being, sustainability, and meaningful relationships over purely financial indicators. As automation replaces many traditional career paths, I suspect we'll see a redefinition of productive contribution to society, perhaps valuing creative or caring roles more highly. Environmental consciousness will likely become a key measure too, with individuals being judged on their ecological footprint rather than their material accumulation. However, I doubt these changes will be uniform across all cultures and socio-economic groups.
I envisage a rather fundamental paradigm shift in how success is conceptualized, driven by several converging forces. Firstly, as artificial intelligence increasingly automates conventional career trajectories, the traditional equation of professional status with personal worth will inevitably be disrupted. This may catalyze a broader cultural reckoning with what constitutes a life well lived. I anticipate that metrics of success will progressively incorporate dimensions such as psychological well-being, strength of social connections, and environmental stewardship, essentially moving from purely individualistic measures towards more collectivist ones. We're already witnessing embryonic signs of this transition in movements like slow living and the growing discourse around degrowth economics. That said, I suspect this evolution will be neither linear nor universal. Entrenched capitalist structures and cultural inertia will ensure that material wealth retains considerable cachet for some time yet. Ultimately, I believe we'll arrive at a more pluralistic understanding of success, though the journey there may prove contentious.
Before you go, don't forget to like this video, share it with other test takers, and subscribe so you never miss your daily IELTS and CELPEP tests. Drop your score in the comments. Your name could be featured in our monthly Achievers newsletter. Stay consistent, stay focused, and keep leveling up with MasterPrep.